Hello and welcome, everybody. This is the overview of the RMA certification, the Retirement Management Advisor, Practical Retirement Income Solutions. My name is Gray Bullard. I'm on the call today with my colleague, Carrie Estes. We are going to go through the presentation here relatively quickly. We have about 30 minutes with you all today. I'm just going to wait a few seconds here while everybody logs into the webinar here. Great. Well, let's get started here. Again, my name is Gray Bullard. I'm an enrollment counselor here at the Investments and Wealth Institute. I'm joined on the call today with my colleague, Carrie Estes. We are enrollment counselors here, can help you with any questions you have. We're going to go over the RMA, or the Retirement Management Advisor certification today. All lines are muted. Please type your questions in your Q&A. Also reach out. Just let us know where you're calling in from. We'd love to hear about where you're calling in from today. This webinar is recorded. You will receive a recording of the webinar to the email that you registered with, but please reach out if you have any questions or don't receive that. There are no CEE hours for this call today. So just to get started, I wanted to give you an overview of the Investments and Wealth Institute. Our mission is to deliver premier investment consulting and wealth management credentials, the CIMA, CPWA, and the RMA certifications here. We also partner with our world-class education to the Yale University and the University of Chicago Booth, two academic partners that we partner with to deliver our executive education. This is a little overview of the Investments and Wealth Institute. We have just around 17,000 or so members here. Not all of our members are certificates. We also have certificate programs, webinars, a lot of online education that our members enjoy. But we have a number of conferences throughout the year that our members go to get continuing education, to network, and to learn sort of the latest in investment management and wealth management as well. So just moving on, we can move on to the next slide here. We do have an upcoming conference in April. It's our big national conference. This year it is in Las Vegas at the Wynn Resort. Please have a look at that on our website. There's a list of speakers that are going to be coming. We're looking forward to having over 1,000 of our members at that national conference. And as I mentioned, we have a number of certificate programs where you can get a certificate in private wealth, in private markets, endowments and foundations, and other certificates like that to help with your ongoing continuing education. We also have micro courses, short courses, as well as podcasts and things like that to help keep you up to speed on the current trends and things going on in the investment management world. So this is what you're here for. We're going to talk a little bit about the RMA. And I wanted to just introduce you to a few of my colleagues here, and also some of the RMA faculty. Bob Powell has been involved with the RMA for some time now, but the two folks that you will be mostly reaching out to as you go through the RMA program will be Stephanie Confer and Mike Kurz. Stephanie is our certifications program manager, and Mike is our director of programs, and as you can see, he has a number of our certifications as well. So we're going to hear a little bit from Mike and Bob here, just to talk as they talk a little bit about the RMA program and certification.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this RMA certification program, the focus on curriculum. We've got a good few minutes planned for you. My name's Mike Kurz. I'm the director of programs. We have Bob Powell with us. He's part of our RMA faculty. Bob, hello.
Hello, Mike. Good to be with you again.
This is the best part. I know that folks are learning about the program and the different steps to start and get your application and how you go through, but the curriculum for us is the best part. Let's take a look at them. The core body of knowledge. We look at 3 domains spread out across that core body of knowledge that encapsulate 11 of those sections. Bob, are we going to walk through some of these sections for folks?
We are indeed, because this is what the RMA is all about, Mike.
I love it. Every now and then we'll get questions, how did you build that? How did you come up with that list? Well, we do a very extensive process where what we call a job task analysis that we survey advisors, consultants, folks, a lot like many of you, if you're listening in and learning about RMA today, your peers, the folks in your firm, we talk with academic folks, but practitioners and folks that write books about retirement income planning and folks that are building products, building solutions and strategies that work in investment firms and annuity companies, all with that process to update the certification process, update the curriculum, so that those 3 topic domains, those 11 sections, those 66 knowledge statements are all about the knowledge, skills, and abilities required and what we believe are necessary based on that job task analysis to be that retirement management advisor. Bob, tell me about section 1.
Well, section 1 is sort of it lays the groundwork for the context and the perspective that you'll need to think about how do you become a retirement income specialist. And what we do in section 1 is we give you a sense of a lay of the land. What are the demographic trends that are going on? What is a little bit of the history of the RMA as it pertains to retirement income planning? One of the grounding foundations of the RMA is something called life cycle finance. And life cycle finance is something that was developed many years ago by a Nobel Prize winning economist named Modigliani. And much of what people will learn in the RMA is based on some of the work that Modigliani did way back when. The other element is goals-based financial planning. We know that in the evolution of financial planning, retirement income planning, we have moved away from investment-based planning to goals-based planning, because ultimately that is what our clients are trying to achieve, is a goal, not necessarily beating the S&P by 3 percentage points. The goal is more important than what the returns are on a portfolio. And then lastly, I would say that there's this notion of what are the realities of aging. In the past, maybe advisors didn't have to think about that, but as people live longer, issues like cognitive decline and elder abuse become a factor. And then the last thing I'll mention is this notion of how do I add value to a client relationship in the world of retirement income planning. And we'll go through some of those techniques in terms of, Social Security claiming strategies or tax efficient withdrawals from retirement accounts. All those things add value to the relationship as we think about that first domain, Mike.
Well, I love section 1, and it continues to build on that. Section 2 then starts to see, like, hey, as part of counseling clients and investors that are shifting from this accumulation phase, where most advisors are, hey, we need diversification, asset allocation, rebalancing, and a moderate portfolio for you is a good moderate portfolio for everyone. Suddenly we start to see that we need to shift to decumulation, and things change. And as part of that, our retirement approach to this portfolio and assets and income changes. And we have to be more sensitive now than ever, Bob, with behavioral finance issues, these roadblocks, these obstacles that can get in the way. But as part of that, talk with us about how now in retirement income planning, it's different with aging, retirement, cognitive decline.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? What we've witnessed is as people live longer, they're experiencing maybe 3 phases to retirement. There will be the early years, the mid years, and the late years of retirement. And as people age, their cognitive abilities decline. In some cases, they develop dementia or Alzheimer's. And it's really important for the advisor to become knowledgeable about the possibilities of what happens as people go through these 3 phases of retirement, and plan for that 3rd phase, especially in cases where their clients or the loved ones of their clients will be experiencing dementia and Alzheimer's to the point where they may be incapacitated and unable to make decisions. And in years past, advisors really didn't have to deal with that. But inside the RMA, you'll get exposed to what to do in cases when clients experience cognitive decline or worse.
Yeah, I love that. We love the program for RMA, and we do think it is a bit different. It does require a higher standard of expectation for the advisor. As you said, much more forward-looking planning for those phases. We believe ethics is a big part of that. Certainly on delivering on your expectations to your client is as important with ethics. Having this senior designation that focuses on a retiree, there's certainly different state, national, and other regulations to follow, along with our code of professional responsibility that we feel is very important to make sure you hold yourself to that standard and higher standard, being an RMA certificate in the future. And with that, as we move through this, Bob, section 4 now really starts the time to dig in and do the work. This is that discovery and analysis phase, that advisory process, that advice and planning process. There's a lot of work here that can really make a difference when you start here in section 4. Talk to us more about what you see in the RMA and how this is going to help candidates.
Yeah, so advisors are, well familiar with client discovery, but as people approach retirement, as they land on retirement's doorstep, I think discovery becomes, so critical, because it's not only about capturing someone's financial assets and capturing how much is in an IRA. It's really capturing their human capital, their financial capital, their social capital, and all the documents that are so important. We talk about, for instance, estate planning documents, or a power of attorney, or a healthcare proxy. All those documents become all the more important as people land on retirement's doorstep and enter into that living in retirement phase. And your ability to do discovery in ways that perhaps you never had to do before becomes essential in order for you to build what I would describe as, a comprehensive, holistic, household-based retirement income plan.
Oh, I love that, Bob. And that's where we start to see that the list of opportunities for retirement clients are different. The list of risks that we're going to talk about in a minute is different. Certainly in the RMA program, we're going to go through client case studies and fact patterns, so you can get a sense of how do you actually do this in the real world. We want everything in our programs to be very applicable and practical, as well as prepare you for the program. And when you mentioned human capital, social capital, and financial capital, this assessing the retirement readiness for investors is important. Talk about this idea of the household balance sheet, Bob.
Sure. So oftentimes when a client or prospect comes into an advisor, they really want to know if they can retire. Do they have the assets necessary to fund their desired standard of living? And what we've done with the RMA is create what we call as a household balance sheet, where we're not just assessing someone's financial capital, 401k, IRAs, taxable accounts, Roth accounts, whatever it might be. We're assessing the entirety of their capital to determine whether they are ready to retire. And we do that on a constant and consistent basis throughout retirement, as we're monitoring their plan, is to get a sense of, do they have sufficient capital to fund their desired standard of living from all these sources, be it financial capital, social capital being, in our case, either a defined benefit pension plan or Social Security, and human capital, which would be, are they continuing to work either full-time or part-time in retirement for some period of time for income, for W-2 or 1099 income.
Absolutely. But most folks are familiar with this cash flow, net worth planning, and financial planning. A net worth statement, we can consider just that financial capital piece. Then moving on to the household balance sheet, pulling in other assets like we talked about, social capital and human capital. And then from that, being able to measure your readiness. What are your financial ratios? How does this look? Are you funded? Are you underfunded? Or are you kind of in the middle with being constrained? All those things are important, Bob. But what we see as we're driving this, are you ready for retirement? One of the big things that advisors have to be more adept and more capable of is now identifying the unique risk in retirement. No longer is it, hey, if we are diversified asset allocation and do some rebalancing, we're not worried about anything, put you in a moderate portfolio if you have 15 years, set it and forget it. Now suddenly, unique risks to that household matter. Bob, talk about how we go through this process, how it's a little more unique in retirement income planning, this decumulation phase, than maybe most advisors are familiar with.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned there are two bedrock principles, I think, to the RMA, one being the life cycle savings and investing concept as developed by Modigliani. The others are the other bedrock for me is the principles of risk management, which historically have been applied to the world of insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, property and casualty insurance. What we've done in the RMA when we think about retirement risk management is to think about how those principles of risk management are applied to creating a retirement income plan. And among the things that we do, we look at, for instance, all the risks that you'll face in retirement. And I'm fond of saying that planning for retirement is all about the reward, and that living in retirement is all about managing and mitigating the risks that you'll face in retirement, because there are many, as we've noted on this slide: market risk, credit risk, inflation risk, longevity risk, spending risk, on and on and on the list goes. And what we do inside the RMA is give you a tool to help you categorize these risks, assess these risks, whether there's a hazard, whether there's a probability of it happening, whether there's a negative consequence to it happening, and how would you manage and mitigate that risk. All really important as you think about, how do I help make sure that the client I'm working with today will be able to sustain and enjoy the standard of living that they desire. Some of it will be, do they have sufficient income? Some of it will be, have I managed and mitigate all the risks that they'll face in retirement? And that's just as important as making sure they have the income to, fund their lifestyle.
Well, I love it. And we have good tools that candidates will use as they go through cases and do case design and case studies, as they start to implement this strategy and structure. Going through that risk assessment and risk management phase is so important. And then moving through this, as you can imagine, moving through this process, Bob, candidates still have big decisions to make. How do we build the portfolios? How do we put these pieces together? Section 7 then says, okay, we need cash reserves and income floor, growth upside, and longevity protection. Bob, portfolio construction and this portfolio allocations are huge.
Yeah. So again, this is sort of a bedrock principle in the sense of, how do we implement a retirement income plan? We like to think of it in terms of, I commonly say 4 sleeves. The floor being, how much income do I need to at least meet my minimum consumption needs, whatever those might be. Could be essential only, or it could be essential and discretionary expenses. But the floor covers what would be your consumption needs. The upside, on the other hand, could be used to fund, the future goals or discretionary expenses, if you want to segregate floor from upside. And then lastly, we need money set aside, not lastly, but thirdly, we need money set aside for reserves, because we know not everything that we plan for in retirement happens according to plan. You might need a new roof, you might need a new car, you might need to pay for your grandson's college education, whatever it might be. Money needs to set aside in that sleeve as well. And then lastly is, we need to manage and mitigate the possibility of outliving your assets, or I sometimes like to say, outliving your standard of living. And in that case, we've got a longevity sleeve to accommodate to meet the goal of not outliving your assets. And that may be, we'll talk more about this, but there are different products like QLACs or deferred income annuities or pensions or Social Security, all of which can be designed to manage the risk of longevity.
Yeah, Section 7 is important, and certainly for advisors, it's where we really start to make some difficult decisions. Those key retirement planning decisions are now covered in Section 8. And a big part of this, Bob, the 2 twins that we think of, Social Security, retirement benefits, and Medicare strategies, there's a lot in Section 8.
Oh, there's so much. And I think about, where can advisors add value? Well, oftentimes 2 things. I think about Social Security as just-in-time learning. Many of your clients will not think about Social Security and when to claim until they're maybe 3 or 4 years away from needing to claim. Before that, they don't need to worry about it. And then after they claim, they don't need to worry about it. So your ability to help your clients when they're in that just-in-time moment is critical, because they will come to you with all sorts of questions about, should I claim now? Should my spouse claim now? Am I entitled to survivor's benefits? Am I entitled to divorced widow benefits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So knowledge of Social Security is critical. Likewise, Medicare. Medicare is even more important because it's an annual decision, Mike, right? Each and every year after you turn 65, you've got to make decisions about, should I stay in Medicare, original Medicare, or should I enroll in Medicare Advantage, or should I switch back to original Medicare and buy a Medigap plan? It's really complicated, but that's where you can add value, and having knowledge of this topic is critical.
Oh, I agree. And we continue in Section 8 to talk about what safe retirement withdrawals look like. How do you build guardrails? This idea of dynamic withdrawals that are included. Moving on, section 9 is really where we get in, and there's 11 sections, so we have a couple more to talk about, but implementation strategies, building out that account location, the withdrawal sequencing, how to build those different parts and pieces into that, and then moving on to that section 9 that we dig into specific products as part of that. Section 10, then Bob says, retirement, those phases of retirement, those 3 phases that you talked about earlier, Bob, they're going to have some transitions. Advisors need to be prepared for this and look at this ahead of time. Talk with us about this.
Yeah. So again, right, we not everything is going to go according to plan, and some of these plans include the possibility of couples getting divorced, or a death of a spouse, or having to have become a shared housing facility, perhaps, or whatever. We mentioned cognitive decline earlier. Elder abuse is a very big problem, especially as people age. And then, this notion of many people want to age in place, but the ability to do that becomes harder and harder as health ailments, begin to occur in someone's household. So aging in place is what everyone wants to do. The other thing that everyone wants to do is not be a burden on their loved ones. And at some point, they become a burden on their loved ones because they insist on aging in place. And so we look at, well, what are some of the long-term care facilities that you may need to think about? Assisted living, skilled nursing facilities, continuing care retirement communities, shared housing, I mentioned a second ago. You, as an advisor, heretofore didn't have to think about these things, but now you do, and now you need the knowledge to help your clients grapple with these decisions that they're going to have to make.
Yeah, I love section 10. Not only does it talk about long-term care insurance choices and options, it talks about long-term care choices in general. Where am I going to live? Where am I going to stay? How are people going to take care of? Well, these are huge decisions that we believe need to be wrapped up in a beautiful bow, need to be well organized, well documented. Certainly, this is not a once and done forever, but that retirement policy statement in the last section, section 11, is so very important, Bob.
Oh, it's the most critical part, because everyone needs a plan. Most advisors are familiar with an investment policy statement. Well, the same is true when it comes to retirement income planning. You need a retirement policy statement that will serve as your blueprint for making decisions, for when you'll monitor the plan, when you'll make adjustments, and what will the triggers be to make those adjustments. And if you're thinking about from the client perspective, them having a plan gives them the peace of mind that they need in order to know that that they're going to make it. Ultimately, that's what clients want to know, right? Am I okay? And the policy statement helps you answer that question. Yes, you're okay.
Well, we hope you all enjoyed that overview of the sections. We are going to get a little bit right back into the presentation here again. I wanted to get a little bit into the becoming RMA certified. This next slide here covers the 3 steps, the guided self-study, which is the self-study modules, the 11 modules that you just covered in that video, 1 through 11. Once you get through all of the self-study online part of the program, you then will then move on to the capstone. So the news that I wanted to share a little bit with you all going forward here is we have the on-demand self-paced course, which you can do anytime. You can enroll anytime for that. We're also introducing a new program this year with University of Chicago Booth School of Business. That's a 1.5-day workshop in October. That the study program for that starts in April and goes all the way through October. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the next slide here, but we're going to talk a little bit first about the exam. It is 100 questions. They're all multiple choice. The exam is 3 hours long. You can schedule that at any time. And that's sort of those are the three components of the RMA, really. It's the online, the capstone, which is an essential part of the program, and then, of course, the RMA certification. And this is the booth program. Carrie, if you wouldn't mind, you could just put the that one slide on to show the overall slide, because we're seeing a couple of slides here, just in slide presentation. Perfect. There we go. Now I can see the Chicago booth. So this is the Chicago booth program that we're excited to talk about today. So in the past, the RMA program has been either an in-person or an on-demand format delivered by the Institute here. But there has been some discussion about wanting to have Chicago booth as an academic provider, which we provide also for the CPWA and the SEMA certifications. So a little bit of an overview here on Chicago booth. Like as I mentioned, the study period will start in April. You would enroll actually earlier than that, hopefully a couple of months or so before that in February. We'd get your registration through your application, and then you would start studying for that program in April, all the way until October. The actual 2-day workshop will take place in Chicago at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. And the cost for this program is $3,495. And we're very excited to get going and to have Chicago Booth partner with us to deliver this RMA certification. So it's just another option for you all. And again, getting started here, you have, as I mentioned, you have two options: the on-demand, open enrollment. You can enroll anytime you want. And please reach out to me and Carrie to talk more about that. And you have the Chicago booth in-person class taking place in October. The time commitment is around 4 to 6 months. If you're doing it on demand and you accelerate your study time, you might be able to get it done in a little less time than that. But on average, it's between 8 to 12 hours per week. And again, the investment and the cost in that, the on-demand program, is $2,495, whereas the in-person Chicago booth program is $3,495. And there is an RMA designation program preview. We can send you a link to that. We can give you sort of a kind of an insider's look or snapshot of what those modules will actually look like. So I want to talk a little bit about the scholarship or our foundation. We fund scholarships for candidates that are looking to enroll to offset some of that cost. It's funded through our Investments in Wealth Foundation. So I just wanted to offer the eligibility criteria here. The ranges of scholarships will be in the range of $1,000 up to a few thousand to help offset that cost of the RMA certification. So just if you have any questions about this, please reach out to me or Carrie. Also, the link below, the investmentsinwealth.org foundation scholarship, is the link to apply. You do have to fill out an application. It takes about a half hour to get through it. And please apply for the scholarship before you've enrolled in the RMA, because if you do receive a scholarship, you'd receive a discount or a promo code to enter when you pay. So you'd need that before you even enroll for the RMA certification. And again, this is our contact information. Take a screenshot of this. But please, we have just a minute or so to answer any questions you might have. There were definitely a number of questions that came through as the presentation was going on. Thanks for answering some of those, Carrie. I know there were some questions about getting the RMA approved at certain organizations. You know, if you are going through and asking questions to your corporate office, if you're with a wirehouse or an asset management firm and you're looking for approval and you're not getting information, we have contacts at many wirehouses and companies across the United States that we can help connect you with. And if your firm isn't recognized in the RMA, we could certainly help clear that up a little and find a way for you to get that approved. So if you have any questions, and then there were also some questions about continuing education being a certification holder already. If you already have a certification with us, either the SEMA or the CPWA, and you want to get an RMA, you'll receive 40 hours of continuing ed for your other certifications. You could hold all 3 of our certifications here, and you'll only need 40 hours of continuing ed going forward. You don't need, 3 times that for 3 certifications. You just need the 40 hours for all 2 or 3 of our certifications. So those are all questions for that. Also, you would receive complimentary membership when you do enroll for 2 years in the RMA, and then going forward, you would need those 40 hours. So
One more question came in here, Gray,
Great.
about a webinar made available, a recording, and we will certainly send
Yeah.
a link to the recording later this afternoon for anyone who registered. So look for that email that you registered with, and we'll send that your way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining, everybody. We're excited to talk to you going forward. And if you have any questions about our on-demand or Chicago Booth RMA program, please reach out to me and Carrie. And there's our contact info. Have a great day, everyone.